Thank you. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Neil Anderson.
Here.
Paul Anderson. Bucci. Christensen.
Here.
Condon.
Here.
DePietro.
Here.
Furlong. Kinnon. Lucy. Nestor. Spatafora.
Here. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. For those who do not know, we are obviously here for several reasons this evening, and the council has decided to take out of order off our docket for the many people who are attending on behalf of McFadden. So to take that from, we on 7, 8? From number 8 to number 1 of the docket, so you don't have to wait to the end of the meeting to hear it. Okay? So with that being said, Madam Clerk?
Ordered that the sum of $1 million being the same as hereby transferred from Senior Center 108 loan account to McFadden Manor Geriatric Authority account. Councilor Lucy.
On Councilor Lucy's motion to suspend financial rules, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? On Councilor Lucy, on Councilor Lucy for the paper.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome everybody. Just a little background. Normally what we would do is we would have a paper that would come out, say like tonight, and then get referred to Finance Committee and get voted out and onto the floor next week. We didn't have that paper to do last week, but we did have a letter from the mayor, and because of time, time is so important with the Geriatric Authority and what they're trying to do up there, and July 1st is right around the corner. That's why we suspended rules. What we have before us, we have a financial paper from the mayor to transfer $1 million and put it into an account. And with that $1 million would come 5 stipulations that the Geriatric Authority would have to sign off on. One of them would be, goals that they would have to meet every month. Trying to get that number, it's around 28 folks up there now, to get up to that break-even point 57 number, which is they submitted a 15-month plan to us last week, and we held a discussion probably almost 2 hours last Tuesday. So with all that being said, I was comfortable. I think because of time, we need to get this out and voted on. I and Councilor Christensen started with some of the people up at McFadden Manor to kind of push the Geriatric Authority. So, I'll be supporting the paper. It's a very tough road ahead if going forward, and so I think everyone realizes that. So with that, I'd like to open it up to anyone on the council. Like I say, it is a paper. It's not just, here's a check for, $1 million and, work off it. There are some restrictions that, everyone's going to have to agree on. But the mayor does need, a two-thirds majority of the council to vote the financial paper to move it forward. So with that, I'd like to open it up for discussion for any of the city councils.
Thank you, Councilor Lucy. Entertain any questions for Councilor Lucy? Councilor Gary Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to join my colleague, Councilor Lucy, in support of the paper. I know it's very, 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 very difficult for my colleagues to entertain this proposal during the current fiscal situation, but to me this is something that we've been talking about for several years. It's something that I think will finally get McFadden moving on their own from here on in. And I think the best thing that the paper offers is that if after the first quarter census is not coming in as the Geriatric Authority is predicting, then the city has the right to revisit the funding commitment. So if you take the $1 million and divide it up by quarter, $250,000 the first quarter, I think you're going to know definitely by the second quarter. And so if you take that amount, which is $500,000, this is a figure that we've been talking about right along ever since we talked about moving McFadden over to the Geriatric Authority. So to me, the amount might be a little bit higher than what's been discussed over the past several years, but it doesn't diminish the importance, I believe, of at least making this last-ditch effort to save McFadden Manor. Now, again, if in the first and second quarter the numbers aren't there, then the city steps back in, and then we have to, I think that ultimate decision is made to move a different direction. But You look at some of the things that I think separate McFadden Manor, and I think Councilor Furlong mentioned this last week. Care is superb. The state delegation's behind it. Our congressman's behind it. There's a lot of things that I think are in place to give the facility a chance to succeed. And I would just ask my colleagues, as difficult as it is, to at least make this one final attempt to see whether or not McFadden Manor can move forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Christensen. Councilor John Furlong.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I stated last week, I am also supporting the paper. And, one of the things that we talked about last week was the way this 108 loan could be used. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that's out there, that this is the first year that can be put into the general fund. Is that correct? Or they can use it in the general fund?
Capital improvements.
No? Well, capital improvements. Okay, capital improvements. And we had talked last week about, the needs. It'd be a difficult paper to vote for if some of the needs, like we talked about last week in the fire department, about new pieces of apparatus and new streets and sidewalks. That I've heard that for 10 years up here, and so I'd like to see them get McFadden Manor get a shot at least to try to put this together and pull it out. So that's where I stand on this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Furlong. Councilor Neil Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do not find this as a difficult vote to make because I think that McFadden Manor needs the opportunity to continue, to have a right to continue, and I have every intention of voting in support of this, and would hope that there are enough votes on the council to allow McFadden Manor to have this geriatrics authority put in place, work toward the goals that have been established, that have been agreed upon. I think McFadden Manor has provided some great service to the city, and we owe it to allow it to continue to reach these goals, and if they do, we'll all be very pleased with that. So it's not a difficult vote for me. I intend to support this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Councilor Jim Nestor. It's not working?
Let me tell you how because I'll let you know.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Anderson, as well. You're welcome. This is a very difficult vote, no question. We had an open meeting last week, and we were all presented with a financial plan that is very difficult to achieve. Unfortunately, I think it's unrealistic at this time. The financial plan was out. I've spent all last week talking to as many people as I can to try to find a way to feel comfortable in this economic environment to vote out $1.2 million. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that. The funds are not realistic. There are no hard, fast numbers in the mayor's plan that came down. They're saying if on this particular date, if these numbers are not met, this will occur. There's none of that out there, which makes this vote difficult as well. The other thing that's troublesome to me, after the vote is taken, there doesn't seem to be any long-term plans. And I did speak to Mr. Levine about that as well. So at this point, I'm just not comfortable moving forward with this. It's not a decision that I took lightly. It's a very difficult decision, but unfortunately, the stars are not aligned properly, and the financial plan, I should say, to me, is not aligned properly to move forward on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
To my own mic off. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Judy Bucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, want to state that this, by far, is a very difficult vote for me to take tonight. As I said at our previous meeting... I'm sorry? Okay. I said at our previous meeting that I've had some personal experience as well as professional experience in this particular challenging scenario that's been presented to us in terms of the escalating costs of health care and the adjustments that have been made. But aside from that, I know that my colleague Gary Christensen was mentioning earlier about the additional dollars that were identified some time ago in terms of supporting this particular facility. And as we've all experienced the last 12 months, the money is just really continuing to get more difficult. So at the end of the day, it's hopeful to think that what we said 12 months ago could come to fruition, but ultimately I just think that we're as Councilor Nestor has pointed out, there, in my opinion, from my research, there isn't a solid plan. It's much more unstable. It's based on the hopefulness of filling the number of beds to keep this facility thriving. So I am not going to support this particular request tonight. It definitely is a challenge to come to that decision, but my decisions have always been based on my research, my discussions with folks, looking at the current economic climate, realizing that in the city of Malden, we are faced with such challenges that are going to affect 57 or 58,000 people. And I do know that, the folks who do reside up on Forest Street have other options, maybe not the ones that people want to hear about, but there are obviously, I feel, quality organizations that have similar types of residency. So, again, it becomes a challenging and difficult conversation, I think, because our emotions do intervene. But aside from all of that particular information, I just want to make it clear that tonight it is a difficult vote to not support this. But I think from a I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied because it is so hard. That it is definitely something that it isn't a win-win. There's no win-win in this vote. So. Thank you for the indulgence, and sorry for my tongue-tiedness.
Thank you, Councilor Bucci. Councilor Paul DiPietro.
Thank you. Am I on? Yeah. Thank you, Council President. First of all, I'd like to preface my remarks of saying that I don't think there's a person sitting up here at the podium that wouldn't like to keep the McFadden Manor open. Unfortunately, given the circumstances that we're encountering, it's a very difficult vote, and I'm sure that nobody really likes to do it on our watch. But given the meeting that was held last week, the open meeting, the plan that was put forth, it just seems unattainable. They're talking about having a part-time administrator while trying to increase the beds, the residents that are in there, to make it a break-even proposition. Also, the wages that were negotiated over the years for our city employees, they would be subject to all change too. So, it comes to a point where we're the last city in the state, I believe, I've been told, that has a city-run facility of this nature. And unfortunately, with the state of the fiscal plan, the competition from outside sources, there seems to be a 20% vacancy rate, according to what we're seeing in surrounding nursing homes. The Medicare reimbursement programs to keep people in their homes. So it seems that it's just a unattainable situation, and regrettably I can't support this paper. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor DiPietro. Councilor Paul Condon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been struggling with the vote all weekend, looking at everything and going back years and being familiar with the state of the building. which is a huge concern because it's not $1 million worth of work, it's millions. It's millions, multiple millions for the physical state of that building. And to just look at the plan and see what the geriatric authority faces between now and June 30th, because June 30th, 12 o'clock, they take over the entire McFadden Manor. And they have no director in place. They're talking possible part-time director. They have to negotiate with the unions, which will be a very difficult thing to do. No question about that, because they're no longer going to be city employees. It's not a normal budget year, that's for sure. It's as bad as it was in '89. And then the other part of me says, how does McFadden compete with these nursing homes around? I had an experience a year ago with my aunt that we had to put her in a nursing home. But if they're running at 15-20% vacancy rate throughout the area, and they're competing with our patients to get our patients, how do we, sir, why don't you come up here? I'm trying to speak as loud as I can.
Anywhere, any matter. Please use the microphone. Please speak up. I heard the lady perfectly.
Okay. So if each nursing home is 15 to 20% down, we're asking the geriatric authority in this plan, within 15 months, you have to have an 100% increase in your clients coming into the building. I have to be honest with you. I know that the level of care in McFadden is tremendous. The people have been there for years and they do a tremendous job. But the physical state of that building, I don't know where it can go. I think the only reason why it survived the way it has over the years is because it was a city-owned building and one of the only ones in the state. But I don't know where it goes from here, because geriatric will take over the entire building. That building is in tremendous need of repair, and we have to take partial responsibility for that as a community, because we let it go as a city council because funds weren't available. You know, and I know how hard the people work up there, but I can't support this because I don't think it can be successful. You know, the numbers don't make sense to me to make this a viable nursing home. And if I was choosing a nursing home, despite the tremendous care of the employees, I'd have to consider the physical state of this building and the fact that for years they've talked about closing the building. So would I put, say, my aunt into a building that could close in 3 months? I don't think I would, you know. So, I mean, the people that have worked there and over the years and the geriatric people deserve a lot of credit, but I just don't feel like I can support this paper the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Condon. Anybody who hasn't lit up the screen yet want to speak? Councilor Paul Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
I too have struggled all week and tried to do as much research on the presentation that was presented last week to come up with a solution, because in my heart of hearts, I would love to see McFadden Manor stay on. Unfortunately, given all the uncertainty that was presented last week, to counter any shot that I had of hoping that we could make this work went away when I heard the presentation last week by the authority expecting 100% turnaround. just on the basic fact that the limitations that have been put on the $1 million transfer says that we would look at it 1 month at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 month at a time. If we don't hit those figures, we'll then consider about closing it at that point. That means the projection that is in your budget that was presented to us of the first month going up 3 beds is just physically impossible, because part of the reason the numbers have dropped is because of the uncertainty. So no one's going to volunteer to put their loved one into a building that in 3 months may close. You need to have that certainty, and there is no certainty in this budget that's been presented to us. There's just more uncertainty, and that makes it extremely difficult, because I had hoped that we would see something coming before us that would give us some certainty. The second reason is also, I think, not just monetary, but you need to have closure for those families that have been living through this uncertainty for, 18 months now, maybe 2 years. And they need to know finally, yes, it's no longer a viable operation for us. We need to now move forward. Or, they've committed enough money. They have a plan that's going to work, and we got a shot at making it work. That plan didn't come. So, out of respect to those people who have been suffering through this, I can't ask them to continue this uncertainty. We need to have that certainty, and therefore, I can't support the package either. And hopefully, I can only say that I thank all the many years of workers and employees that have gone there and put in their hours and time and labor and made it the only one in the state because of their great care, not ever be forgotten. And hopefully down the road we can do something, and hopefully we can help them in this process of moving, and we're going to have to commit some funds because they're not going to move overnight, and I think we need to do that more so now than later, because the numbers just really and truly don't work. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Anderson. Any other lights? Councilor Christensen for the second time. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just say that to the previous speaker's point that if we have to close the facility, we're going to be expending money there. So to me, it would make sense to at least try this first quarter to see if they can meet 10 new admissions, because I don't know the exact amounts, but I assume the money you're going to expend to close might come close to the money you might spend in the first quarter to determine whether or not they might bring in 10 new admissions. To me, I think that's worth attempting, particularly based on the history of the organization. McFadden Manor has been through a lot, no fault of anyone's, but I really think we've come a long way, and to not least give it this one final attempt, we could look back someday and regret doing so. We talked about how can they compete. I think they can compete with care, support they have. The Geriatric Authority has been meeting. Council Lucy and I have attended those meetings. We've gone to the Friends of McFadden Manor meeting. I think the support is there that if we were to just make this one last ditch attempt, it might help get them over the hump once and for all. Buildings don't replace good care. I know that issue's been raised as well, and if you look at the ratings that the facility's been able to generate over the years, 4 or 5 stars with a facility in that condition, to me is another indication why we should at least make this attempt. There's also been talk that if they were able to secure this paper, then the facility might look into broadening the scope of what they offer there. I think it'd be nice to see if they could offer adult daycare, if they could offer a PACE program. But again, if we don't make this attempt tonight, we'll never know. And also I would say that on the long-term plan, I think, unless I'm reading the mayor's memorandum dated April 27th wrong, he clearly refers back to the projected residents financial sheet that was submitted by the Geriatric Authority, and it clearly states 15 months. And if there's not a turnaround after 15 months, then the facility closes. So, to me, again, the mayor's referring to a concrete plan that's submitted by the authority. And also, the thing that we should look at is by, making this attempt tonight, the city's going to save long term. I think, as indicated to us last week, the facility's been losing, close to $500,000, a little over $500,000 a year. So we're going to see that going forward for years to come. So all those things combined, I think, we should at least, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I really think it's incumbent upon us to make this last-ditch effort. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Council Christensen. Any other questions? Before I entertain a motion from the chair, I, too, like the rest of the councilors, this is not a decision that I think has any winners for that matter. I think it's a lose-lose on both sides. You have one side of the equation. While the money is not coming out of the budget, it is essentially going to be on the books of the city. We will pay back that money. On the other side of the equation, you have 28 residents or 29 residents and workers that will ultimately be out of a job and people out of a home. So you have two equations where there'll be a loser on each side. I think both sides have argued the point admirably. I think the friends of the McFadden man, I think the Geriatric Authority have done Herculean task in a short amount of time. However, if you do the math, the facility lost $600,000 last year. And while the presentation was very informative last week, it opened up a lot more questions than they had the answers to, because unfortunately there is no answers. It is a guesstimate at that much. We have right now, we're running up against, as far as the city, to get people to go into those beds, the chance that this facility could close in 3, 6, 9 months. People don't want to buy cars right now because they're afraid companies go out of business. Why would they put their loved one in a facility that could close? Yes, sir. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, the only thing, sir, you can't... Sir, you're out of order. You can't... I will speak as loud as I can. You just can't yell in a public forum, okay? Thank you. Okay, I will yell for the rest so everybody else can hear. But we're at the crossroads right now where money, unfortunately, is very limited. In fact, it's all but gone. We've asked for plans last week. We received some answers. I asked, everybody in this room will agree. I know there's workers in this room right now. Everybody in this council's been, we've seen it. We've heard it. I've toured the property. I've heard residents who live there. I know people who have loved ones there. Everybody knows this. The service is impeccable, if not the best. Councilor Christian said it rates high. Unfortunately, when I asked the gentleman last week, will you be able to maintain that status? He said, we don't know. Because once the Geriatric Authority is turned on, everything's changed. There's no director. We might have to lay people off. We might have to change the pay scale. We will change the benefits. So now, the two parts that we feel that are inadequate is, one is going to be the facility. We all agree the facility needs work. Councilor Condon did say it is partially the city's fault. It's not one paper cut that kills you, it's thousands. And unfortunately, the city was neglectful in putting money in there year after year. We can't go back. We cannot afford to build a new one. Everybody in this room realizes that. So the next step, or the next part of the equation, is the service. We can't guarantee, or the Geriatric Authority cannot guarantee, and rightly so, cannot guarantee that same level of service. So we have a facility that's failing, and the service that might not be there in a month, and then might not be there in 3 months, 3 weeks, 6 months. You sit on this side of the equation, it's too many chances, too many unknowns. That's why I think you've seen this council is, we've debated this probably more in the last 3 weeks than we have any other topic, and rightly so. But it unfortunately comes down to funding. This is $1.2 million. It might not sound like a lot of money, but it is. And the same token is $1.2 million with the burn rate that the McFadden has is not going to last you probably to the summer. And then, unfortunately, those people will be moved, and those workers that are left will have to look for new work. So we either put a Band-Aid on it, or we do the inevitable, right now, and make that decision. But either one, like I said, is not an easy decision. There are no winners here. There's only losers. So with that being said, I cannot support the $1.2 million. Mr. Lucy? Councilor Lucy? Do I hear a motion?
I would make the motion to accept the finance transfer with the restrictions that the mayor has indicated in his letter.
On Councilor Lucy's motion to amend by the conditions contained, you made the motion. To adopt?
Subject to those restrictions.
On the 418 letter from Mayor Howard, correct? 27, excuse me. From Mayor Howard to Nancy McPheeters, correct? Does everybody understand? Councilor Kinnon.
Yes is to transfer the money. No is to not transfer the money.
Understand? Yes vote to transfer, no vote not to transfer. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Neil Anderson.
Yes.
Paul Anderson.
No.
Bucci.
No.
Christensen.
Yes.
Condon.
No.
DePietro.
No.
Furlong.
Yes.
Kinnon.
No.
Lucy.
Yes.
Nestor.
No.
Spatafora.
No. 7-4?
Wait a minute. I
Check my math, Councilor Lucy.
So, yes is one no. Christensen. DePietro was a no. I squared it up. Kinnon.
7-4?
Yeah.
4 for yes, 7 for no. The transfer is denied.
You can't move it until...
You want a 5-minute recess?
Yeah.
On Council Anderson's motion for 5-minute recess, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Council's in recess.
I'm sorry.
please return to your seats? Council will come to order.
We need Councilor Condon here in order to call a motion by him.
Council will come to order. Councilor Condon. Councilor Kinnon. Councilor Christensen. Checking. We're waiting for Councilor Condon, who I believe had a motion before we had a recess. Councilor Condon is en route.
Anderson are on their way.
En route. Councilor Condon? Councilor Condon.
Mr. President, I move reconsideration, hoping the same will not prevail.
On Councilor Condon's motion for reconsideration, hoping that the same does not prevail.
So,
Clerk will call the roll.
do you want
Yeah. Yes will. No will finalize the vote. Yes will breathe. Yeah, we'll have the ability of reconsideration. So a no is for final, and a yes has the ability to do.
The opposite.
No, right? No.
No reconsideration. You want no.
A no.
No vote
no.
will
Finalize.
finalize
You
the
guys
vote.
are yes.
A yes vote will open it to further debate.
Yeah. A no vote will finalize, and this will be the finalize.
You know, if you voted yes before, you vote no now, and vice versa.
So everybody hear that? No vote would finalize this. A yes vote could open up to reconsideration. Okay?
Councilor Neil Anderson.
Yes.
Paul Anderson.
No.
Bucci. Christensen.
Yes.
Condon.
No.
DePietro. Furlong. Kinnon.
No.
Lucy. Nestor. Spatafora.
No. Counts?
Consideration is denied.
Reconsideration. You sure, Madam Clerk?
I am.
Okay. Reconsideration has been denied. We're going back to the top of the docket for the councilors and for anybody following along. Next order of business.
Minutes of the meetings of May 5th and 12th.
On Councilor Gary Christensen's motion to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Next order of business.
Dear members of the council, pursuant to the provisions of law, I hereby appoint Simon Muzalik of 61 Mill Street, Malden, Massachusetts, as a member of the Malden Planning Board. Said term to expire March 1st, 2012. Mr. Muzalik will replace Hattie Broom, who recently resigned. Very truly yours, Richard C. Howard, Mayor. Confirmation is required.
On Councilor Neil Anderson's motion to refer to ordinance, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion to refer to ordinance. Next order of business.
The petition of National Grid for installation of a 45-foot C2 pole and anchor with guy wire on the sidewalk of Commercial Street. A hearing is required.
I'd like to declare this portion of the public meeting open. If there's anyone speak in favor of the petition, please come forward. Is anyone here speaking in favor? Are you from Mass Electric? Okay, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Hold on, let me turn that off for you, sir. We're used to Dan Cameron, so I apologize.
So,
Yeah, you can speak in the mic. Just
Okay.
state your name and address for the record and the company you're with.
Yep, my name is Su Wei Yu. I'm coming from National Grid for the petition to install a 45-foot Class 2 pool and anchor with guy wire on the sidewalk of Commercial Street.
Any questions for the petitioner? Any questions?
Yeah.
Your ward.
Yeah, no.
You all set with it, Council?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay. No questions for the petitioner? Okay, we're all set.
Thank you.
If there's anybody else in favor, anybody else in the audience who would like to speak in favor, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none and hearing none, I deem that portion of the meeting closed. If anybody here in favor, here to speak in opposition of the petitioner, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. If there's anybody here who wants to speak in opposition, come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none and hearing none, I deem that portion of the meeting closed. So on Councilor Christensen's motion to grant subject to the following conditions: one, that the sidewalk and street are repaired to the satisfaction of the Director of the Public Works, and that the engineering will be notified when DigSafe is called. Do you understand, sir? So on Councilor Christensen's motion to pass. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item is passed. Next order of business.
The petition of National Grid for installation of conduit on the sidewalk of Faulkner Street from pole 1927 to the property at 501 Eastern Ave. A hearing is required.
If there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of that petition, please come forward. State your name and address for the record. Petition. It's kind of repetitious.
Yep. Hello, my name is Suwei. I'm coming from...
Would you state your name more clearly, please?
Suwei Yu, spelled as S-I-W-E-I. My last name is Y-U. And I'm coming to petition for the installation of the conduit from the pool 1927 to the property at 501 Eastern Ave.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner, Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, this is a project at in the location where the temple was.
Hey, Mike, off.
What? Tell me about this installation, sir. What is the purpose of it?
Yeah, is for the customer at 501 Eastern Ave. They are building conduit buildings, apartment buildings over there. So
that's a new construction of an apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that's sitting at the location of the former temple that was there in East Avenue. That's I'm certainly in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none and hearing none, I deem that portion of the meeting closed. If there's anybody here to speak in opposition of such petition, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none and hearing none, I deem that portion of the public hearing closed. On Councilor Neil Anderson's motion to pass, with the subject to the following condition as well, that the sidewalks be repaired to the satisfaction of the Public Works Director, and that the engineering department will be notified when DigSafe has been called. On Councilor Neil Anderson's motion to pass, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item is passed. Next order of business.
Petition of National Grid for installation of a 35-foot Class 3 utility pole and anchor with down guy on the sidewalk of Clifton Street. A hearing is required.
If there's anybody here who would like to speak in favor of this petition, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Suwei. I'm coming from National Grid for the petition to install a 35-foot Class 3 pool and anchor with down guy wire on the sidewalk of Clifton Street.
Okay. Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Council President. Okay. Could you describe the, I'm just getting the information on this now, the exact location of, in the scope of the work, sir?
Yep. The proposed pool is in front of the house number 103 Clifton Street to take away the tension of the overhead wire from the pool 5279 to another pool at Washington Street, because of the pool 5279 is leaning to the house at 139 Washington Street. That's why we need to set another pool across the street to take away the tension.
To take care of the tension. And exactly the position of the guy wire, is it, how far does it come out from the base of the pole?
6 feet.
6 feet?
4 to 6 feet, yeah.
4 to 6 feet?
Yep.
And it would be not an obstruction to the sidewalk of pedestrians?
I'm sorry?
There wouldn't be an obstruction for pedestrian traffic?
No.
It would
the
not.
pool is at the sidewalk and the anchor is on the side, on the closer side, near the house.
All right. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other
Mr.
questions for the petitioner? Seeing none and hearing none, I deem that portion of the meeting closed. If there's anybody here in opposition of the petitioner, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. And then seeing none and hearing none, I deem that portion of the public meeting closed. On Councilor Paul DePietro's motion to grant, subject to the following, that the sidewalks and streets be repaired to the satisfaction of the Public Works Director, and that engineering be notified when dig safe has been called. So on Councilor Paul DePietro's motion to grant with said conditions, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion is granted. Next order of business. Okay, and if the council has no obstruction, we'll be reading all the licenses in one order, in one group. So I see no objections. Madam Clerk?
Application for municipal street license, City Connect Incorporated, 35 Elgin Street, Boston. Extended hours permit, Blockbuster Incorporated, Center Street. Application for pool table licenses, Malden Eagle, 75 Meridian Street. VFW, 36 Crystal Street. Loyola Moose, 562 Broadway. Application for renewal of an outdoor parking permit, Malden Middlesex Motor Sales, 35 Canal Street.
Any on Councilor Neil Anderson's motion to refer to license? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Items are referred to license. Next order of business. And we're skipping over 8 because it was the financial paper. I'm sure everybody can remember that. We're moving down to, I believe, is there any committee reports, Madam Clerk? Or none?
There are none.
So we're moving down to table papers. Item number 12.
Paper number
116.
182, the mayor's veto of paper 116, tabled until this meeting.
On Councilor Christian for the paper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to ask my colleagues if we could table this paper indefinitely until I've had a chance to meet with our city solicitor on her memo that was issued to us a few weeks ago.
Okay. On Councilor Christensen's motion to table indefinitely, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Item is tabled indefinitely. Next order of business.
Docket's clear.
Docket is clear. We will move to personal privilege, starting from my right. Councilor Furlong.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just informed the last week or so about a opportunity for the city of Malden. I actually have some of the flyers and stuff that I'm going to distribute out throughout the city for a Malden Community Night for the North Shore Navigators. The North Shore Navigators are a semi-pro baseball team in Lynn. One of the big draws to this, and I'm going to talk to Babe Ruth, softball, everybody to go to this, even the community, as much as we can, that Jared Frenny, who pitches for UMass Amherst, is on the roster for the North Shore Navigators, and for it to be Malden Community Night, Jared Frenny is the scheduled pitcher for July 20th. So I'm going to be distributing some of these flyers, and we'll have tickets available. And I think it's only like $4 or $5 a ticket for a family night. They're going to have all kinds of, like the bouncy things and the paint in your faces, and everything goes to the youth foundations in the city. We split the gate. So if we have 3,000 tickets or 4,000 tickets and we sell 4,000 tickets, we get the revenue of 2,000 tickets, which goes and buys, new catcher's equipment or whatever for certain leagues, or it helps out. So maybe sometimes, some of the leagues fall on hard times, we'll be able to do this. So, plus Jared Frenny being a Malden athlete, and I think it'd be a great opportunity. It'd be a night for us to go out to a ball game. And like I say, it's not like you're going to Fenway Park and you're paying $120 for a ticket and $8 for a hot dog and $7 for a beer. It's, pretty reasonable prices where it would be, $4 for a ticket, maybe $1 for a hot dog, and it's affordable for the family. So there will be information coming out. It's it's going to be a Malden Community Night for the North Shore Navigators. The game right now is scheduled for is July 20th. So I will have further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Sounds like a fun evening and cheaper than Councilor Christensen's fundraisers, so I'm sure you'll have a lot of people there. Councilor Bucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to send a very huge thank you to the Malden Police Department.
It's on. Is it on?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to send a huge thank you to the Malden Police Department. The last few weeks, we've held a few resident meetings down in the Linden area to talk about some vandalism, and then obviously that led into a conversation around other activities that certainly afflict this city as it does many others. But last Wednesday night we met with a group of residents to talk with Sergeant Mullis, Chief Coy, the sector police that cover Linden and down the Ward 8 area, and he yielded, Sergeant Mullis spent some time with the residents trying to help them best understand what is going on in terms of drug activity. On Friday at 2 p.m., just 2 days after a very healthy discussion with the Linden residents, Sergeant Mullis, with the help of other neighboring cities and towns and the K-9 unit, and all the aspects of his resources that he spoke about, had a successful drug bust that had been a long ongoing monitoring situation. And the residents certainly have echoed through email and phone calls, have certainly echoed their support, again, of the Malden Police Department, and having the information and better understanding of what they're doing, feel a lot more safer in their neighborhoods today, and will continue to do so. So again, Sergeant Mullis, Chief Coy, and all the men and women that are out there on the streets making sure that we do have a safe place to raise our families. We are extremely thankful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bucci. Councilor Christensen?
Thanks, Mr. President. Just want to remind the residents of Ward 1 that National Grid will be having a planned outage tomorrow morning from 9 to 11 a.m. I've been working with the mayor's office to notify the affected residents. I just want to make sure, at a minimum, the councils at large know that it's scheduled from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And if weather doesn't permit, it'll be Thursday, and if weather doesn't permit, it'll be Friday.
What streets, Council?
There's about 25 of them, yeah. So we've been reaching out to the residents to let them know. Hopefully in the future we might be able to take advantage of our reverse system to try and get the message out that way. But if anybody's watching and they have any questions, they can call me at 781-389-3148. Also, just want to let everyone know, too, the Memorial Day Parade is set for this Monday, 10 a.m. rain or shine. We'll be gathering at Salem Ferry Main Street. We have about 20 groups that are participating, so that's a good number at this point. City Controller will be happy to know we've come way under budget on the parade. And we want to make sure, we want to thank Megan, Mike Drummy, who've been meeting with John Webster, Council Spatafor, and myself for the past several weeks. So we'll be ready to go on Monday morning. And then finally, Mr. President, I just want to invite my colleagues to the Dockside Restaurant on Thursday, June 4th, from 6 to 9 p.m. There'll be a fundraiser for the Bread of Life, where 10% of the proceeds raised will go to the Bread of Life. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Christensen. Councilor Neil Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd first like to thank the Mystic Valley Charter School students under the direction of Alex Dam, who were out on this last Saturday at the Kierstead Park, and they did a yeoman's job of picking up and cleaning up and removing some graffiti down there. It was a wonderful service. I want to really give a shout out to a great effort and thank them very much. After they left the Kierstead, they went down to the Lincoln Common and did some picking up and cleaning up down there and getting ready for as we use these parks during the summer months. So thank you, Mystic Valley Charter School students, for a great, great job. I'd also like to tell you that on May 31st, which is a Sunday morning, we'll have a group of residents that'll be coming down to the Lincoln Common at the really at the behest of one resident, Elizabeth Sikorsky, who came out and said, you know, I can see the overgrowing of rose bushes that are just crowding out the other vegetation there. I'd like to do something to help bring that park, beautify that park in a way that hasn't been for a while. And so she's organized this group. They'll be coming out on the 31st. They're going to be pulling out some of the rose bushes. They're going to be doing some other planting. this is just a perfect example of someone in the neighborhood seeing things that needed to be done, not just looking for their city to do everything for them, but willing to roll up their sleeves. And I want to encourage those other residents in the neighborhood to come out and join with us on May 31st there at the Lincoln Commons, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Come on out, roll up your sleeves, and let's help to beautify the park. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councils? Councilor Neil Kinnon. Councilor Kinnon. I don't know if your mic's working, Councilor. You might have to use Neil's.
I would like to make a motion for the council to meet in executive session for the purpose of discussion.
Can you hold that motion for 1 second?
Sure.
I just have one other thing I have a couple of announcements. Sorry, Councilor. And then you can get the mic. I just want to give a few announcements before we entertain a motion. Tomorrow at the library, there is the Jazz Series, which they host, I believe, every month for 4 continuous months. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the Malden Library is the second jazz festivity. I also want to give a thank you and an applaud to Councilor Christensen for his Ward 1 Mother's Day breakfast. He always does a great job, and it gets me out of going for breakfast so I can go there and on the cheap, too, Councilor. They did a great job as usual. I also want to thank the Chamber for a great event that was held at Anthony's last week. That was a sold-out event, actually. They actually stopped selling tickets, and a very helpful thank you to all the shining stars they recognized that evening. And finally, on May 30th on Canal Street, the Bike to the Sea is having a cleanup at 9 a.m. So that's May 30th, Saturday at 9 a.m., Bike to the Sea on Canal Street. So with that being said now, I will entertain a motion from Councilor Kinnon.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I'd like to make a motion for the council to meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing possible disciplinary action against city employees based on the city's fiscal year 2008 annual audit.
So, on Councilor Kinnon's motion to go into executive session, to meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing the possibilities of disciplinary actions against the city employees based on the city's FYI 2008 audit. All those in favor, clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Neil Anderson.
Yes.
Paul Anderson.
Yes.
Bucci. Christensen.
Yes.
Condon.
Yes.
DePietro.
Yes.
Furlong.
Yes.
Kinnon.
Yes.
Lucy.
Yes.
Nestor. Spatafora.
Yes.
You're going to say this will be conducted.
So I make a motion to adjourn.
No, you got to do that when you come out.
Council will be dismissed and will be only coming back for the purposes of dismissal. No further council business will be done this evening. Thank you.
Okay.